Life has a funny way of showing you what matters. At 46, I thought I had it all figured out. The California sun streamed through my Tesla's panoramic roof as I drove down Sand Hill Road. Another successful board meeting at Thompson Technologies. Our AI security platform was revolutionizing the industry. Stock prices were soaring. Venture capitalists were practically throwing money at us. I smiled, thinking about how far I'd come from my humble beginnings in Michigan. 20 years of grinding, of sleepless nights, and countless sacrifices. But it had all been worth it. I had the perfect life in Silicon Valley. A beautiful 8,000 square foot home in Palo Alto. A loving wife of 15 years. An incredibly talented daughter about to attend Stanford. And now, unexpectedly, another baby on the way. Sarah had surprised me with the news last month. At first, I wasn't sure how to feel about starting over with a newborn at my age. But seeing her glow with happiness, I couldn't help but be excited too. Emma, our 18-year-old, was thrilled about becoming a big sister. She'd always wanted a sibling. Life couldn't get any better. I pulled into our circular driveway, admiring the meticulously maintained gardens. Sarah's pride and joy. Before we met, she'd been a yoga instructor at an exclusive studio in San Francisco. Now she channeled that energy into making our house a home. I found her in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. Her honey blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Even in yoga pants and a loose sweater, she looked radiant. "Hey, stranger," she smiled, but something felt off. Her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "Board meeting went well?" she asked, continuing to chop. "Better than expected. The Series D funding is locked in." I loosened my tie and grabbed a bottle of water from the Sub-Zero fridge. "That's wonderful," she said, but her tone was distant. Before I could ask what was wrong, the front door burst open. "Dad! Dad!" Emma's voice echoed through the house. She bounded into the kitchen, her long dark hair flying behind her. My Stanford acceptance package came. I wrapped her in a bear hug, lifting her off her feet like I used to when she was little. "That's my girl. I never doubted you for a second." Sarah wiped her hands on a towel and joined our embrace. For a moment, we were the perfect family again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting beneath the surface. Later that night, I was in my home office reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, Sarah's sister. "Can we meet tomorrow? It's important." I frowned at the screen. Rachel and I had a complicated relationship. She'd never forgiven me for what happened with her husband, David. He'd been my first business partner. We'd started Thompson Technologies together. But 3 years in, I discovered he was embezzling company funds. Millions of dollars gone. I had no choice but to report him. He died of a heart attack in prison 6 months later. Rachel blamed me for his death. Said the stress of incarceration killed him. I tried to make amends. Helped her financially. Made sure she was taken care of. But the bitterness remained. "Sure," I texted back. "Usual place? 11 a.m. Don't be late." The next morning, I met Rachel at a quiet coffee shop in Menlo Park. She was already there, stirring her untouched latte. Time hadn't been kind to her. Grief had etched permanent lines around her mouth. Her eyes were hard, suspicious. "Thanks for coming," she said, not looking up. "What's this about, Rachel?" She pushed an envelope across the table. Inside were photos. My stomach dropped as I flipped through them. Sarah, entering a high-end gym in San Francisco. Sarah, laughing with a muscular man I didn't recognize. Sarah, kissing him in the parking lot. "His name is Jake Morrison," Rachel said flatly. "He's a personal trainer at the gym." "Why are you showing me these?" My voice was barely controlled. "Because you deserve to know the truth about your perfect wife." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They've been seeing each other for months." "That's impossible. Sarah's pregnant." Rachel's laugh was bitter. "Are you sure it's yours?" The words hit me like a physical blow. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone needs to open your eyes, Michael. She gathered her things and stood. Watch your back and check your brake lines. Before I could process what she meant, she was gone. I sat there for a long time, staring at the photos. The happy woman in them was a stranger. Not my Sarah, not the mother of my child. But deep down, things started clicking into place. The late night yoga classes, the new gym membership, the distant looks, the secret phone calls. I drove to my office on autopilot, my mind racing with possibilities, each one worse than the last. I needed help, someone discreet, professional. I called John Miller, a former FBI agent turned private investigator. His office was in a nondescript building in San Jose. Mr. Thompson, he greeted me, his handshake firm. What can I do for Silicon Valley's rising star? I spread Rachel's photos on his desk, explained the situation. He listened without interruption, taking notes. First things first, he said when I finished. We need to verify if your daughter is actually yours. The suggestion felt like ice in my veins. Emma? But she's better to know now than be blindsided later. He was right, of course, but the thought of testing my relationship with Emma made me sick. What else? We'll need to monitor your wife's movements. Set up surveillance on this Jake person. And Mr. Thompson? Yes. Get your car checked. Immediately. I left his office with a hollow feeling in my chest. The world I thought I knew was crumbling. That afternoon, I took my Tesla to the service center. Claimed I was hearing strange noises when braking. The technician's face turned serious during the inspection. Mr. Thompson, someone's tampered with your brake lines. What? See these marks? This was deliberate. If you'd taken that car on a steep hill, he didn't need to finish the sentence. I thought about my drive home yesterday, down the winding roads of the peninsula. How close had I come to? I called John immediately. Things were worse than we thought. That evening, I sat in my home office, watching the security footage John had installed. Sarah was in the kitchen, talking on her phone. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. It's too risky. A pause. No, Rachel, you don't understand. If he finds out, another pause. Fine, but we need to be careful. Jake almost got caught last time. The words echoed in my head. Jake, Rachel, what were they planning? I opened my laptop, accessed our joint accounts, found a series of large withdrawals, money I couldn't trace. Then I discovered something else. A new life insurance policy. $5 million. Taken out in my name, without my knowledge. The pieces were falling into place. But I couldn't believe it. Wouldn't believe it. Not until I had proof. Absolute, undeniable proof. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Quickly closed the laptop. Sarah appeared in the doorway. Looking innocent. Beautiful. Deadly. Coming to bed, she asked softly. In a minute, I managed to say. She smiled and disappeared. I sat there in the dark, wondering if my wife was trying to kill me. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions, attended meetings, made decisions, smiled at the right moments. But inside, I was falling apart. John's surveillance revealed more. Sarah meeting Jake at expensive hotels. Rachel coordinating their movements. Money changing hands. But we needed more. Concrete evidence. Something that would hold up in court. Then the DNA results came. The test I never wanted to take. The truth I never wanted to know. Emma wasn't mine. The paper trembled in my hands. 18 years of memories. First steps. First words. School plays. Soccer games. Science fairs. All built on a lie. I locked myself in my office. Ignored calls. Missed meetings. Tried to make sense of my shattered reality. Sarah knocked several times. Asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. Couldn't look at her. Couldn't pretend anymore. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't be their victim. I called my lawyers. The best in Silicon Valley. Set things in motion. Moved money. Protected assets. Gathered evidence. The next morning, I drove to the office early, called an emergency board meeting, explained that I needed to step back temporarily. Personal reasons. They understood. Silicon Valley respected privacy, at least publicly. Back home, I packed a small bag, told Sarah at a business trip. She looked relieved, probably thought it would give them more time, more opportunities. I checked into the Four Seasons in San Francisco, set up a command center with John, watched as their plan unraveled. The cameras caught everything. Sarah and Rachel's late-night meetings, Jake's attempts to access my car again, the phone calls, the money transfers, the lies, all of it documented, all of it damning. I thought about Emma, my beautiful, brilliant daughter. It wasn't my daughter. How would I tell her? Should I tell her? Would she hate me? The questions kept me awake at night, while I waited for John to gather the final pieces, the evidence that would destroy everything, but save my life. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had built my fortune on security technology, protecting others from threats, never imagining the greatest threat would come from within my own home, from the people I trusted most, the people I loved. The storm broke on a Tuesday morning. My lawyers were ready. The evidence was ironclad. I filed for divorce, froze all joint accounts, blocked access to company assets. Then I waited. Sarah's panic call came within hours. Michael, what's going on? The accounts are frozen. I can't access anything. Her voice trembled with barely controlled fear. Talk to my lawyers, I said flatly. What? Lawyers? Michael, please. I hung up. Rachel called next, full of venom and threats. I let it go to voicemail. Then Emma called. My heart shattered all over again. Dad, what's happening? Mom's crying. Aunt Rachel's here, and she's furious. Why can't Mom access the accounts? We need to pay my Stanford deposit. I gripped the phone tightly. Emma, sweetheart, I need you to trust me. Everything will be explained soon. But Dad, please, Emma, just wait. The silence on her end was deafening. John arrived at my hotel suite that evening with the final piece of evidence, audio recordings from their last meeting. I pressed play with trembling fingers. Sarah's voice filled the room. The break line didn't work. He's getting suspicious. Rachel's voice, cold and determined. Then we need to try something else. The insurance policy is active now. Jake can make it look like an accident, a home invasion gone wrong. Clean, simple, untraceable. Sarah's sob caught in her throat. I don't know if I can do this. Think about the money, Rachel urged. Think about your future with Jake. Michael deserves this, just like David deserved prison. The recording continued, detailing their plans, their backup options, their alibis. I felt sick. John placed a hand on my shoulder. We've got them, Mr. Thompson. The police are ready to move. I nodded numb. Do it. The arrests happened simultaneously. Sarah at our home, Rachel at her apartment, Jake at his gym. The media exploded with the story. Silicon Valley CEO targeted in murder plot. Tech mogul's wife conspires with lover. Family revenge scheme exposed. Emma was at school when it happened. I had arranged for a counselor to be there, to help break the news. About everything. The plot, the DNA test, the lies. She didn't come home that night, or the next. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I understood. Her whole world had imploded. Everything she believed about her family was a carefully constructed fiction. The preliminary hearing was set for Thursday. My lawyers presented the evidence, the recordings, the surveillance footage, the financial records, the tampered brake lines. Sarah sat across the courtroom, looking small, broken, not the confident woman I married. Rachel glared at me with pure hatred. Jake stared at the floor. Their lawyers tried to fight it, claimed the evidence was circumstantial, argued about privacy violations. But the judge wasn't swayed. The evidence suggests a clear conspiracy to commit premeditated murder. The defendants will be held without bail. Sarah broke down. Rachel remained stoic. Jake looked like he might be sick. I felt nothing. The media circus intensified. Reporters camped outside my office. My home. The courthouse. Everyone wanted the story. The successful CEO. The unfaithful wife. The vengeful sister-in-law. The personal trainer lover. It was like a soap opera, but it was my life. Emma finally called. I'm staying with Monica, her best friend's family. I need time, Dad. I understand, sweetheart. Is it true? Her voice cracked. About the DNA test? I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Yes. The silence stretched between us. But Emma, listen to me. You are my daughter. Biology doesn't change that. I've loved you since the day you were born. Nothing will ever change that. She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. I have to go. Emma, please. The line went dead. I sat in my hotel room, staring at old family photos on my phone. Vacations, birthdays, Christmases, all those smiling faces, all those perfect moments. Were any of them real? The trial date was set. My lawyers prepared their case. The evidence was overwhelming. Sarah's defense team approached with a deal. She would testify against Rachel and Jake in exchange for a lighter sentence. I told my lawyers to reject it. Let the jury decide. The press got hold of the DNA results. More headlines, more speculation, more pain for Emma. I issued a statement through my PR team, asking for privacy. For Emma's sake. Some reporters respected it. Most didn't. The company's board called an emergency meeting, expressed their support, but suggested I take a leave of absence until this blows over. I agreed, appointed my CFO as interim CEO, focused on the trial and trying to reach Emma. She had withdrawn from Stanford, decided to take a gap year. I need to figure things out. Away from everything, away from everyone. My heart broke again, but I understood. Sometimes distance is the only way to make sense of chaos. The trial began 3 months later. I testified first, recounting our life together, the success, the seeming happiness, the discovery of their plot. Sarah wouldn't look at me. Rachel smirked throughout my testimony. Jake looked defeated. The evidence was presented methodically, each piece building on the last, creating a picture of calculated malice. The prosecution was thorough, relentless. The defense tried to paint Sarah as a victim, manipulated by Rachel's thirst for revenge. Jake as a lovesick fool, used by both women. But the recordings told a different story. The jury deliberated for 2 days. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit murder. Attempted murder. Fraud. Sarah got 15 years. Rachel 20. Jake 12. Justice was served, but it felt hollow. I won, but I lost everything that mattered. My family, my trust, my faith and love. The media eventually moved on, found new scandals to chase, new stories to tell. I returned to work, threw myself into new projects, expanded the company, but my home remained empty. Emma sent occasional texts, short updates from her travels. I'm in London. Paris is beautiful. Taking art classes in Florence. I responded with love, support, understanding, never pushing, never demanding, just letting her know I was here. I would always be here. The holidays were the hardest. Empty rooms, quiet meals, no Christmas tree, no family photos, no laughter, just echoes of what used to be, and questions, endless questions, about love, trust, family, and whether any of it was ever real. 1 year after the trial, I sat in my home office, staring at an email from Emma. I'm coming home. Can we talk? My hands shook as I replied. Of course. Anytime. I'll be there tomorrow. She arrived on a sunny afternoon, looking older, more mature. Her eyes held a wisdom, born from pain. We sat in the garden. Sarah's flowers still bloomed, tended now by a gardener. I've been in therapy, Emma said. It's helped. I understand things better now. I waited, letting her find her words. I was so angry, she continued. At Mom, and Aunt Rachel, at you, even though you didn't do anything wrong. I know, I said softly. It's okay. She turned to face me, tears in her eyes. Is it true what you said about me still being your daughter? Even after knowing, I reached for her hand. Emma, listen to me. I've been your father for 18 years. I was there for your first steps, your first words, every skinned knee, every triumph, every heartbreak. DNA doesn't make a father. Love does. She broke down then, falling into my arms, like she used to as a child. I held her. My daughter. Biology be damned. I want to go to Stanford, she said. Start fresh. Make you proud. You already make me proud. Every single day. We spent the afternoon talking about everything. Her travels, her therapy, her plans for the future. She asked about Sarah. I told her the truth. About the visits, the tears, the apologies. Have you forgiven her? Emma asked. I'm trying. I answered honestly. Some days are harder than others. She nodded, understanding. The company was thriving. New contracts, expanding markets, success built on innovation. Not revenge, not bitterness. I dated occasionally. Nothing serious. Trust came slowly now, if at all. Emma flourished at Stanford, computer science major. Like father, like daughter. She came home weekends. We rebuilt our relationship, one conversation at a time. Sarah wrote letters from prison to both of us. Sometimes we read them, sometimes we didn't. Rachel remained unrepentant, her hatred of prison stronger than steel bars. Jake served his time quietly, asked for forgiveness. I gave it. Eventually, the media is still called sometimes, wanting follow-up stories. Silicon Valley's greatest betrayal. 5 years later, we declined. Our healing was private, not for public consumption. Emma graduated with honors. I sat in the audience, bursting with pride. She had overcome so much, grown stronger, wiser, more resilient. She joined the company, started in development, worked her way up. No special treatment, just pure talent and determination. We had lunch every Wednesday, father and daughter, building new memories, replacing old wounds with fresh hope. Sarah was released after 10 years. Good behavior. She moved to Oregon, started over. We heard from her occasionally, through her lawyer. Emma visited her once, came back quiet, thoughtful. She's different, she said. Older, sadder, wiser maybe. I nodded, understanding. Prison changes people, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Rachel served her full term, moved away. We never heard from her again. Some wounds never heal. Some hatred never dies. Life moved forward. The company expanded globally. Emma met someone, a young engineer, kind, honest. I did background checks, multiple times. She understood why, laughed about it, but appreciated the concern. They married in the garden, where Emma and I had talked. That first day she came home, I walked her down the aisle. My daughter, in every way that mattered. During my speech, I talked about love, trust, forgiveness, and the true meaning of family. Emma squeezed my hand, understanding everything I hadn't said. Years passed. The company grew. Emma became COO, ready to take over someday. I started thinking about retirement, about legacy, about what really matters. Then Emma told me she was pregnant. I would be a grandfather. Life had come full CI. Berkeley. Not perfect, but real, honest, true. Sometimes I think about Sarah, about what we had, what we lost, the price of betrayal, the cost of revenge. But mostly, I think about Emma, about love that transcends biology, about family we choose, about healing and second chances, and the power of forgiveness. Not for them, but for ourselves. Life isn't perfect. It's messy, complicated, sometimes brutal, but it's also beautiful. If we're brave enough to keep our hearts open, to trust again, to love again, to live again. Emma's daughter was born in spring, when Sarah's flowers were blooming. We named her Hope, because that's what she represented: a new beginning, a fresh start, a reminder that even after darkness, light returns, and life, beautiful, messy, complicated life, goes on.